Linda McMahon with us right now, the former small business administrator under President Trump. Linda, very good to have you with us.
Thanks, Neil. Good to be with you.
You know, I was thinking of what's going on with small business and the costs they keep getting pelted with in inflation, now the higher diesel costs. They just don't stop. And the irony is, as business was booming again, what they're taking in now, that and then some, they're costing out. It's not a good combination. What do you make of it?
It definitely isn't a good combination, Neil. In fact, there was a recent NFIB report that said there are a lot of small businesses who've just decided they can't make it. They're going to have to fold because they cannot pass all of the cost increases on to their consumers. Their consumers cannot afford it. You know, in a prior segment, you were talking about the cost of diesel. Well, think about the restaurant owner who's just waiting to get, their produce or their meat or whatever it is that they're going, to prepare and sell to their consumers. And suddenly the price is becoming so high and the consumers can't afford those prices. They just stop coming to the restaurants and the restaurants close. And it's unfortunate that just as small businesses were really starting to rebound, from COVID-19 and the whole shutdown that we went through, they're now facing, these high costs, that they just can't absorb. And it's really, really a shame. In fact, this is Small Business Week, where there is an emphasis on small businesses. And I think that, what we're looking at with inflation, that's just taken thousands of dollars, out of the pockets of not only consumers, but also out of small business owners. It's just we have to get this inflation under control.
The government's act in weird ways, too, Linda. I mean, you were realizing this and trying to address this when you were in the Trump administration, but more at the local, state level, too. They deal with different rules for different folks. Restaurants that have to order patrons be masked up, or small businesses that have to check, COVID vaccinations and all the rest. There's no consistency to it, and these guys are always the ones under the gun. That doesn't stop. How do you stop it?
Well, I just think we have to have leadership in place that is going to make sure, not only on the state level but the federal level, that we are consistent. I think the shutdown was clearly proven. It didn't work. I think we're seeing that even now in China, that the slowdown that they're saying, in China is just not working. But it did not work here in our country, but except that it put many small businesses out of business, and they just, they can't recover at this particular point because, is there the worry that the mandates will come back on in the states, or federal mandates come back on? I think it's indecision. And that is the worst thing that can happen for a small business is indecision, whether it's are taxes going to go up or down, are regulations going to go up and down, are these mandates going to go up and down. Small businesses need consistency so they can plan. How can they budget? How can they order? How can they do all of the things they need to do to survive if they don't know what impact taxes and regulations are going to have on them? I think that's one thing that the Trump administration was so good in doing was, reducing taxes. They said they were going to, and they did. They reduced regulations, and they kept them down. So that is one thing that business needs. It needs consistency.
You mentioned President Trump, Linda, and I'm just curious. I know obviously these contests within the Republican Party for nominations and all of that, particularly kicking off with Ohio. Everyone watching the former president's backed candidates in states like Ohio and Georgia and some of these other places. Do you still think he has the Midas touch? His backing is gold?
Well, I certainly think we've seen that there are many cases in which he's gone in and endorsed candidates, and their polls have gone up, and they've done very well in the elections. I think we'll just have to see. Clearly, I do think that the policies that we saw that he put in place, the respect that we had on the, internationally, the progress that we saw here at home, the economic viability of our country was at record highs, and unemployment also good. So those policies were clearly very good for our country, and I think those candidates that are still putting those policies forth are having great success.
There's the pro and the con, and a lot of people harken back to those policies, as you pointed out, Linda, that were very good for the economy and the markets. The other side of the equation is the personal behavior of the former president that has prompted talk of him facing competition if he were to run for president in 2024. Ron DeSantis' name comes up a lot in Florida. What do you think about that, if those who challenge the former president, if he chooses to run, and their fortunes? I mean, do you have any horse in the race, with or without the former president in the race?
Well, I'm going to wait and see who's in the race in 2024 before I make any kind of a decision. But I can tell you I have great respect for Ron DeSantis as the governor of Florida. And anytime you ask him about what his plans are, he says he's focused on being the governor of the state of Florida, and he's doing one great job as that governor. I highly applaud his efforts.
So those who look at Ron DeSantis, and you're quite right, you're not the first to tell me that. One, I think, said something to the effect he's Donald Trump without the drama. I don't know if that's accurate, but what did you make of that characterization?
Well, I've heard that characterization before, and I do think that you see that the policies that they agreed on, lower taxes, lower regulation, and Ron DeSantis just stands up, and he stands up for the state of Florida, much like President Trump did for our country. And I think there are similarities there. So I like to see those kind of similarities in policy. But basically, at the end of the day, it's policy that drives the day. It's tax policy, regulatory policy, all of those things, and good leadership. And I think we should look at that in our state leaders as well as our national leaders.
Well put. Great seeing you again. Linda McMahon, the former small business administrator.